Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Dsgb Fantasy Football League Weekly Recap. I'm your host and commissioner, AST1. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and follow me if you like content like this. Let's not waste any more time and let's get into the recap. With the conclusion of Week 14, this puts an end to the 2023 fantasy football regular season. However, one chapter closes and another one opens. Projected playoff matchups are done. Final standings are final, and the journey to the throne starts now.
Hey, yo, lesson here, babe. You come at the king, you best not miss.
Now let's go over some league notes after Week 14 action. The final standings as of Week 14 have menace to the league, taking the number 1 spot after a dominating performance in Week 14 over Crimson Ballers. Number 2 in the standings is the Apocalypse, who has jumped a total of 6 spots over the last 3 weeks and is on a roll heading into the playoffs. The football team dropped to the number 3 spot after a loss to Hancock County, Georgia. Hancock County, Georgia jumped 3 spots to 4th in the standings. Z-Boys falls back 2 slots to the number 5 in the standings after a loss to the NY Giants. Bristol Vikings stay in the 6th spot. Next is Dream Team Redemption, who is on a 3-game skid and falls from the 5th slot to the 7th spot. NY Giants had one of the most explosive teams this year and ended the season in the 8th spot. Summertime falls to the 9th spot after a loss to the Apocalypse. Crimson Ballers remains in the 10th spot. Team Harding closed out the year with a 2-game winning streak and definitely played spoiler, finishing in the 11th spot. And lastly, Team Untouchables closed out the season at the bottom of the standings with a 9-game losing streak. It's been a tough first year for Crimson Ballers and Team Untouchables. I have a funny feeling that these 2 league managers will definitely be back next season. Moving right along, let's look at the top 5 performers from Week 14 in fantasy. Number 5, we have Georgia Bulldogs product, quarterback Matthew Stafford. Stafford, who has been close over the last few weeks to making the top 5 fantasy performers list, finally made it in Week 14. Stafford was 23 of 41, passing for 294 yards, with 3 passing touchdowns, even though Stafford took the loss on the field Sunday. Stafford played a huge part in Hancock County, Georgia's push into the playoffs. Stafford had 28.9 fantasy points on the day. Number 4, we have the University of Southern California product, wide receiver Drake London. London, who was the 8th pick in the 2022 draft, was putting on a show in Week 14. London had 10 catches on 11 targets for 172 yards. London didn't get in the end zone, but he had a huge impact during the game. London had 29.2 fantasy points on the day. Number 3, we have Ole Miss Rebels product, tight end Evan Engram. Engram, who was drafted by the New York Giants in the 2017 draft, was considered a lost cause until he found a home in Jacksonville. Engram had 11 catches for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. Engram had 32.5 fantasy points on the day. Number 2, we have South Carolina Gamecocks product, wide receiver Deebo Samuel. Samuel, who was on the list in Week 13, is back again with a solid performance against the Seahawks on Sunday. Samuel had 7 receptions for 149 yards and a touchdown. Samuel also chipped in on the ground with 1 carry for 1 yard and 1 rushing touchdown. Samuel had 34 fantasy points on the day. And number 1, we have the 2019 former league MVP, Louisville Cardinals product, quarterback Lamar Action Jackson. Jackson, who is one of the most exciting players in the league, was on full display on Sunday. Jackson was 24 of 43 for 316 yards, with 3 touchdowns. Jackson, who is a true dual-threat quarterback, also had 11 carries for 70 yards rushing. Jackson had 37 fantasy points on the day. Now let's look ahead at the Week 15 playoff matchups preview. First, we have 2, 8, and 6 teams. Z-Boys, who is coming into this matchup as the 5th seed, versus Hancock County, Georgia, coming in as the 4th seed. Both teams met in Week 6 with Hancock County getting the win. This should be a good one with both teams being in the top 5 for lowest point score per game. Next, we have the 8-6 Bristol Vikings, who is coming into this matchup as the 6th seed versus the 9-5 football team, who is the 3 seed. Both teams played each other in Week 12, with the football team getting the better of Bristol Vikings. This should be a good one with both teams only winning one game over the last 4 weeks of the season, respectively. And finally, our last playoff matchup is the 7-7 Dream Team Redemption, who is coming into this matchup as the 7th seed versus the 9-5, the Apocalypse, who is the 2 seed. Both teams played each other in Week 4 of the season, with Dream Team getting the best of the Apocalypse. A lot has changed since then, with the Apocalypse coming into the playoffs as one of the hottest teams with a 3-game winning streak, and Dream Team backing his way into the playoffs with a 3-game losing streak. The last 7 teams are set with menace to the league getting the bye week. Let's see how these fantasy playoffs shake out and see who will be crowned king.
King Kong ain't got on me!
Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy this content. Comment below who you think will win their matchup this week. Until next time, AST1 signing off.